Look, check it out. If you do these 6 things, you're not going to get any gains from strength training. I'm serious. They will crush your gains. You're not going to progress. And they're common. If you do them, you can forget about it. You might as well not even strength train. It's not going to work. Let's get to them.
This is why I'm not seeing any results lately.
This is the face palm right here.
This is it. No, these are common. A lot of these are common with people in gyms when they do strength training, especially when they don't quite understand how it works. And the ones we're going to talk about are big deals. And some are worse than others, but some of them will literally negate the effects or the benefits you'll get from strength training. They'll take them away.
I like the first one because I find this as one of the most common things.
It's got to be the most common.
That I got to help people out when we first start. And just
we bring this up so much.
Yeah, and so I'm glad we're getting into this because maybe we talk about it on the podcast quite a bit, but getting into the nuance of it a little bit and explaining more of it, because I feel like no matter how many times I've said this, I know people that have heard me say it multiple times, then I still catch them do it. And so I think it doesn't fully register for people that when you don't have rest periods, when you lift weights, it literally becomes cardio. It's no longer weight training.
That's right.
And just because you're holding weights while you do it, it's actually more like cardio as far as the signal to your body than it is like lifting weights.
I wonder if it's a bit like, you know how everybody innately knows that a warm-up's probably a good idea? Or to like, just get the body ready and prepped before you actually get into the workout, but they're just like, yeah, whatever. And then they just get into it. Like, I feel like
that's kind of the mentality.
Yeah, they kind of hear it and they're like, oh, okay, well, I feel recovered though, so I'm just gonna keep going.
Yeah, no, there's exercise or activity, and then there's strength training. And strength training is very specific. The idea with strength training, now you could just move if you want, okay? So my point with this is if you're not resting in between sets, you might as well do something else. Just because you're using resistance, that doesn't make it resistance training. It's the rest periods. The rest periods are what makes strength training or resistance training what it is.
It's crucial.
That's right. The idea, the goal with strength training and all forms of exercise, you want to think of them as tools, right? You have a hammer, you have a screwdriver, you have a shovel, whatever. You use them for what they're designed for. If you try to hammer a nail with a screwdriver, you're going to be sitting there forever and it's not going to work. The same is true with strength training. The rest periods are what makes strength training produce the results people are looking for with strength training, which is strength, muscle, body sculpting, and then all the awesome side effects that come from that, like the faster metabolism and all those other things. If you don't rest in between sets, it becomes cardiovascular training. It becomes glycolytic mostly. There's no anaerobic part of it. Yep. So now why rest periods? It's not because you need the rest. I think this is where people get confused. Like, why can I keep going?
Yeah, we know that.
Yeah, it's just going to make it harder, so why don't I just keep going? That'll make the workout more effective. No. The reason why you rest is you're focusing on a particular energy system that induces muscle and strength gains. When you go beyond that, now you're working on something called endurance, which is okay if that's what you want. If your goal with weights is I just want lots of endurance, I don't want to build muscle, I'm not looking to build strength, then don't rest, and you'll be totally fine. Again, you could do other forms of exercise that might even be better for that.
It's a different pursuit, though. It's not what you probably think is happening is the problem.
Yeah, and the reason why, by the way, that I even came up with this list is I saw a comment in our private forum. There was I think it was a woman that commented in there, and she's like, today's the first day that I rested 3 minutes between sets. She's like, it felt like an eternity.
Yeah. So I'm sure it does.
For someone who's not used to what traditional strength training feels like, it does. It's not like other forms of exercise where you're constantly moving, and the only time you take a break is if you absolutely have to. With strength training, you take a break to replenish your ATP. This is a form of muscle energy to continue to train in what's known as the anaerobic energy pathways. When you train in the anaerobic pathways, primarily, what that induces in the muscle is growth. It induces strength. Now, why does endurance not do this? Or in fact, why does endurance do the opposite? Because endurance training can actually, in many cases, cause muscles to not grow and sometimes shrink, especially if you already have decent muscle development. Because the larger a muscle gets, it's more difficult to deliver the type of energy systems inside the muscle cell, because as they get bigger, you get this surface area to total volume ratio that changes, and it becomes inefficient. So a big muscle is not an endurance efficient muscle. It's a strong muscle.
Yeah.
So again, if you're lifting weights and the goal is like, I want to build my butt, I want to build my arms, I want to get stronger, I want to shape my body, I want to boost my metabolism through the muscle building process, you have to rest. It has nothing to do with whether or not you feel tired or not. It literally rests in between sets again.
This really just forces the intentionality of it specifically to break that. Like I'm trying to hustle and get through the workout. I'm trying to kind of do what I normally can do, and I have this amount of weight and I can get through these reps. It's forcing the hand of like, I need to really look at this as like, I need to push myself in this moment and then I rest. And that's a different mentality completely.
Well, you grazed over another good point, which is making something more difficult doesn't make it more effective.
Right.
And I think that that's a bit of a fallacy around personal or working out. I think people assume that if it's harder, it's better for me. And that it's just not true at all. I mean, actual programming for building strength, there's a protocol for it, and there is a right way to do it. And then everything beyond that or around that or away from that is less effective.
That's right.
And so something is just really hard or really difficult. You people tell themselves like, oh, this must be good because it's hard. It's harder. Why do I need to rest? If I don't rest, it's harder. Isn't that, and that will make me, it'll build more stamina, but it won't build more muscle. And if that's what we're trying to accomplish, it's a terrible strategy. And so I do feel like this is one of the most common. And there's also, I think there's there's a bit of a culture around classes and excitement and energy.
It muddies the water.
Yeah, it does muddy the water. There's a lot of very popular brands out there that have started these group classes that it's more effective, the energy and excitement than it is actual strength training. And just because they're lifting weights, people sign up for these things and think, oh, I'm lifting weights and it's fun and there's music and we challenge each other with the points and see who can get more. And it's like it turns into that. And so there's a bit of a culture around that also. So then I think it becomes really difficult for people to go in a gym by yourself and then sit down for not just a minute, but 2 minutes or 3 minutes.
That's right.
It feels like an eternity when you're used to 15 seconds or less.
That's right. In fact, the shortest rest periods for those people who have got great strength stamina would be about a minute, minute and a half. That's it. Most people 2 to 3 minutes. In fact, the data shows even with advanced lifters, 3 minutes of rest produces better results. Than 1 minute.
I lean always towards that.
In fact, I'll take it even a step further. If you have a workout and you're like, oh no, I have limited time. This workout normally takes me an hour and 15 minutes if I rest for 2.5 minutes in between sets. I only have 45 minutes. I'm just going to cut all the rest periods super short. You're actually better off doing less exercises.
Yes.
You're actually better off doing less exercises and taking those rest periods. That's how big of a difference. I mean, as a trainer, I'll tell you what, there was so many times I would get a client who would come to me who would say, oh yeah, I do strength training. And it was circuits or it was a class. And the rest periods was like, it blew them away. It blew them away at the results that they got, which by the way, as a trainer, I had to get really good at conversation between sets for some of these clients because they just sitting still felt like a waste of time. They're not going
to believe you.
They hated it. They absolutely hated it.
And that's
until they got the results.
And it's a bit of an awkward time too if you're not good at those conversations.
Just sitting there.
3 minutes standing by a cable machine
staring at you.
It's a long time for two people to not be having conversation. And so we've talked a lot about like the art form of personal training. This is part of the art form of like how good are you at getting your clients to rest for the appropriate amount of time while also giving them valuable conversation that's short enough that you don't take longer than 3 minutes, but long enough that it keeps them sitting still for.
I would do conversation.
An art to that.
I would do conversation, information, myofascial release, or I'd massage them, which they'd like sitting
pop
there for
culture, all of that.
All right, next up is, and this is true for the vast majority of people who strength train, the more advanced you get, the less this becomes important. But unless you're super advanced and watching this, like you've been strength training for 5 years and you're really kicking butt, if you're not focusing on gaining strength, you're missing the mark completely. The strongest correlate to muscle growth or shape or sculpt or however you want to name it is getting stronger. So if you're going to the gym and you're not trying to get stronger at your lifts, especially the big core lifts, again, you could be totally wasting your time. If you do the same weight, same reps every time you work out, nothing changes. Your body doesn't change. Getting stronger should be the focus, the primary focus of your strength training for the probably first 3 to 5 years of strength training. Afterwards, it becomes a little more complex.
Admittedly, this was my Achilles heel. Even long into being a personal trainer, I still chase the burn and the pump more than I chase strength. And switching that focus later in my career, even after many years of actually strength training and seeing decent results, it wasn't like I was getting no results over those 5 years. But switching to really focusing on strength made a massive difference in my gains, my body composition. It was a big, big deal. And early on, I, again, was guilty of chasing the pump or that burning sensation or the soreness afterwards, right? Those three things. It was either, burn, pump, or soreness. That was what dictated a good workout. I used to think that, because I'm not a strength athlete, who cares if I can bench press 215 or 210 or whatever the number is. Which was a mistake. I would have been better served if I would have focused on strength early on.
But that focus of just purely trying to focus on strength is the only focus that actually, provides you with every type of benefit that you're looking for.
That's right.
Aesthetically, if you have pain that needs to be resolved, function, you name it, like that's the one cornerstone pursuit that's going to get you there.
In fact, just again, to take it even further, when you look at the data on a person's health and how it's related to muscle, typically you'll see the more muscle you have, up to a certain point, of course, because then you have extreme cases, but the more muscle you have, the healthier you become and the better your longevity. But there's actually a better predictor of that, which is strength. The reason why muscle in the data has been shown to be positively correlated with health is not because it's just muscle. It's because more muscle typically is strong. It improves your strength. By the way, weak, big muscles are not healthy. This is another one as well, because you have a wide range. There's some people who have just genetics where their muscles just kind of larger, but they're deconditioned and out of shape. Dr. Gabriel Line talks about this,
which is crazy.
It's like a ribeye inside. It's like totally marbled with fat deposits, and it's not healthy. But besides that, look, the first few years of training, this should be your focus. I've never seen somebody not have radical changes to the way their physique looks when their strength hasn't gone up considerably. Every single time. Every single time. By the way, this is still true for me. I've been strength training for decades. I'm at the point now with myself, and I know you guys as well, where getting stronger, the risk versus reward isn't that great. However, if I get stronger now, I see changes in my body every single time. So focus on getting stronger. In fact, trainers know this. If you're a good personal trainer, this is one of the most important objective measures you can pay attention to. Is my client getting stronger? Next up, you're just not eating enough.
So common.
You can be doing everything right,
but
if you're not eating enough, especially of the essentials, proteins, fats, and then just total calories,
limited progress.
You're wasting your time.
90% of my female clients right here.
Yes.
90% of my female clients underate, but wanted to sculpt, build, tone, whatever word, insert, build muscle, and get stronger, but did it without feeding the body enough calories. And so getting that client, which is really tough to do if you are fearful of gaining weight on the scale, and you always eat in this kind of, or eat as much as you can in this low calorie, really difficult to build and sculpt a body without the material.
Yep.
It's
impossible.
Yeah. all we're doing is we're sending a signal to build muscle. We're doing damage, but we're not giving enough body for the body to adapt and grow. It's not going to build muscle. And so you're moving, you're doing things that are good for the body. It's not bad, but you're not going to get the results you deserve.
Here's how crazy this is. You will see in the demographic here is typically women with this, but you will see people who strength train regularly, who then start to get osteopenia and osteoporosis because they're not eating enough. Okay. Strength training is the most effective way to strengthen your bones, just like it is for muscle. But there are people who undereat while strength training, and they're, again, consistent with their strength training. But because their calories are too low, proteins and fats are too low, their body starts breaking down and starts to deteriorate to the point where they have bones that look like someone who is not active. I've run into people like this. I've talked to people like this where they're telling me about the routine. I'm doing 3 full body workouts a week. I'm doing squats and deadlifts. I'm doing all the things. I just got a report from my doctor that my bone density is going down. What's going on? And I immediately know you're not eating enough. And then we talk about their food intake. I'm like, I'm eating 1,300 calories a day. You have to give your body the building blocks it needs to recover and to adapt. If you don't, the strength training that you're doing is a complete waste of time, and in extreme cases is damaging. When you don't feed your body enough to even recover and then you strength train, not only will you not build muscle, you'll actually go backwards as your body sacrifices itself to try to recover from the damage that is caused by strength training. So this is a very, by the way, one of the reasons why this one is so challenging is that a lot of people will say, I want to get shredded and build muscle.
Yeah.
I want to have a 6-pack and I want to have a bigger butt, or I want to get, whatever, bigger back plus a 6-pack. Like, focus on building. When you want to get leaner, focus on getting leaner. Trying to do both,
build first.
It's not happening.
Yeah, and you're always better off, to Justin's point, building first.
Because the leaner part's easier when you build, 100%. Next up is not treating lifts like skills. People will treat a lift as if it's just working particular body parts. So when you look at an exercise, if I were to have a graph with risk and benefit, when an exercise is performed well, when the skill is performed very well, the risk of injury is very low and the benefit is very high. As the exercise gets performed worse and worse and worse, or further away from being done properly, the risk of injury starts to skyrocket and the benefits start to go down. So exercises are only as effective, all things being equal, as they're being performed. In other words, the better they're being performed, the better results you're going to get. So think of it like you're learning a sport. If you're going to go learn how to swing a golf club, you don't just swing the heck out of the golf club. You have somebody teach you the technique, because the technique is what causes the ball to go further and be accurate. Squats, deadlifts, presses, rows, doesn't matter what the exercise is. When it's performed really well, incredible benefits. When it's performed poorly, it's not only is it not going to give you great results, you're going to probably get hurt.
Yeah, I think too. I was trying to think of how to word this, but like when you're performing it as if it's a skill and you're practicing this constantly, it helps you to grab the right amount of weight too.
Yes.
So it's like, this might throw me off balance a little bit, off kilter. Like I have to be able to perform this really sharply and make sure my movement and my body's in under control. And so a lot of times I think people have a hard time picking the right weight. And so this could kind of help that process, but also too, it's a constant improvement you can apply towards that exercise.
Yeah. And I don't know if you intentionally ordered them like this or not, but I find the beginning ones were like some of the most important and most common stuff. These last 3 that you're getting into right now was my own personal natural evolution.
Yeah.
Like I didn't start really thinking and approaching lifting like a skill till much later in my career. So I'd already been doing it for a long time before I really went to the gym thinking like, hey, you know what? I'm not going to really worry too much about how much or sets or this. I'm just going to go get good at this movement and think of it like that, which is interesting because I have an athletic background. And so you would have thought that would have been kind of a natural thing.
Well, to be fair, you were a trainer, so you always knew what good technique was.
Yeah.
But this later was when you were like, oh, I can really hone in.
Yeah. And to kind of Justin's point about picking the weight, like it actually becomes less important because I'm more focused on the movement than I become like, oh, I got to put more weight on. I got to put more weight on. It's like, no, let's go get really good at this movement. And then the next 2 that you're going to follow this, I feel like this was like the later in my career, like, okay, this really started to level this up.
There's 2 types of people that mess up with the not treating it like a skill. One is the person, typically a guy, who just wants to lift as much weight as possible. So he totally butchers the technique, shortens the range of motion.
More of an ego lift.
Yeah, just to get 50 more pounds up.
The other one is the person that's like, it's literally a means to an end. They're just like moving. I see that. I was at the gym this morning and I was in there and I see this guy. I don't know what he was doing. I think he was
hustling through it.
Yeah, he's just like doing this thing, and then he grabs a bar and he's just barely moving, and he's moving as quickly as possible because they're just trying to get a burn. And it's like, man, if you slow down and did good technique, like what you're doing right now is a waste of time. You fix the skill. That's going to blow your mind how well your body responds. Next up, not prioritizing sleep. This is a big deal. poor sleep, one night of poor sleep will increase your risk of injury dramatically. In fact, there's almost nothing that'll increase your risk of muscle tears or strains like one bad night of sleep. If you don't sleep enough, you're basically crushing your body's ability to adapt. In fact, your hormones change. In men, testosterone lowers, cortisol goes through the roof. For both men and women, estrogen and progesterone starts to get thrown off. Insulin sensitivity gets thrown off. Poor sleep actually organizes your body in a way to not build muscle. Because poor sleep is a stressor, and your body's like, we don't want more energy demands. We don't want tissue that requires more energy to support because we're not getting good sleep. So let's not build any muscle.
All the conversion from your work happens in your sleep. I mean, that's where all the magic happens. And it's like, if we interrupt that at all, it's like, okay, you're just going to keep working without the payout. You know, that's not good.
What do you guys, why is this one so difficult? Why did this take later in my career? Why does every young person lifting ignore this part? Why?
Because you can get by, with kind of poor sleep. I think when you really get hit with bad sleep, like you get kids,
they don't value.
Then you're like, oh wow, this big. But I think when you're younger, especially with caffeine and stuff like that, like you can kind of get by.
Band-aid it,
yeah. I mean, there was a period. I don't remember how old I was, a teenager, when I'm like, I'm going to take this seriously, because I never did, and I only did a short period of this because afterwards, I started working and managing gyms, and then my sleep just like was secondary. But there was a period there where it was like 30 days or 45. I remember it was like a short period of time where like, I'm going to bed this time. I'm waking. My strength exploded.
Yeah,
it was crazy the progress I made with that.
Yeah, that's it. Because I do remember a period I was also trying to nap in the middle of the day.
Oh yeah,
and I was consistent. And I do remember like my strength was crazy. Yeah, I never kept it up consistently. But even with that, like I even have examples of like when I tested it and I saw the results, but yet still kind of ignored it. I can't quite figure out why. When we all know how important that is. We speak to that so often, but is it less sexy? Is it because
you're not doing anything?
Yeah.
You're just sleeping.
Yeah.
It feels lazy.
Yeah.
Especially if you're trying to pursue something. I get it.
Yeah.
But it makes a big difference.
Yeah.
There was one study where they had two groups of people, both in the same calorie deficit. One group had bad sleep, the other group had good sleep. The bad group, by the way, they were in a deficit, they weren't working out. So anytime you go in a calorie deficit without strength training, you'll see some muscle mass loss, okay, always, because the body's trying to lower its caloric demands. But anyway, the group with the bad sleep, even though they had the same calorie deficit, lost twice as much muscle.
Yeah.
Twice as much, which is insane.
Yeah.
Next up, you're not prioritizing recovery.
It goes hand in hand with this.
It does. Sure. And most people, I'm going to put it out there 100%, most people, your best results are probably going to occur with like 3 days a week of strength training.
Yeah.
I hate to say it. Like there's a lot of people right now who are doing 5 days a week, 6 days a week. If they just went down to 3, would get great gains from doing less. You need to allow your body to recover from your workouts.
It's just the more is more mentality.
Yep.
It's just it doesn't apply here in that recovery window. The more you can really kind of hone in on that, even like right after your workouts, if you can get in parasympathetic, if you find out how much more effective and strong you are like the preceding workouts. So it's like you just do an experiment by doing a bit less and just see what it does.
I still vividly remember when I first, I wouldn't even say I figured this out. I started to piece it together, I would say, because it was pretty early when I tested this, and I remember seeing great benefits and yet still didn't fully grasp it. But I remember I was a 7-day-a-week, sometimes double-day training person on top of playing basketball and all kinds of activity and training 8 clients a day. And I remember just plateaued so hard. And then I think I went from 7 down to 5. Just started giving myself a rest day like every 3rd day or something like that. And like exploded, like right away exploded. Yeah. And then of course I've made the mistake still thinking that, 5 was the ideal amount. Was like not until much later I realized, oh man, there's very much so a art or dance that you have to do with your body's level of stress, eating, and then the amount of intensity and volume you're training. And there needs to be somewhat of a balance of the two. When you are too extreme on the training side, especially in high stress times of your life, especially high volume, high intensity, it is a recipe for no results or going backwards.
Yeah, even if you're advanced, what your whole year should look like is probably something like 10, maybe 15% where you're kind of sprinting, and then the rest 85 to 90% where you're kind of cruising. So there is there definitely can be benefits from having those weeks where you're really getting after it.
Yeah.
But that's not how you should always train. For the most part, you should be at kind of this proper volume, interrupted by these short sprints where by the way, high level athletes even do this. We're talking about genetically gifted athletes. They have an in-season and off-season. Could you imagine if all pro athletes were always in season all the time, what their injury rate would look like and their longevity?
Well, I think when you talk about 90-10, you really put that into perspective, because I think we've said things about this before, but like really 90% should be cruising, and only 10%. That's very rarely. Does that mean you should really be getting after it like that? And I don't think the culture around lifting weights is anything like that. No. It is, I mean, it's beast mode, no days off. Those are the hashtags. We glorify the crushing, punishing, failure type training as the majority of the time. And so then everybody is chasing after that, when in reality, most people should just kind of be cruising, and then the occasional sprint like that, and then back to cruising again.
And they'll get better results.
Way better results.